Hello, good morning, everyone. Thank you very much, everyone, joining in our regular Sunday morning program of Tibetan Buddhist Society of Canberra. This morning, I'm just going to do the teaching as I'm a little bit short of time, so we won't do the meditation as such, but we will continue the theme on the life of the Buddha. Some of you may have already been following. Others may not have been following, but if you can bear with me next an hour or so, today we will cover a very important part of the life of the Buddha. So before we do the talk, we'll do short prayers as we usually do. That is to renew our kind heart and wise mind to put our everyday action so that we are safe in our thoughts, in our mind, and the way we speak, and what we call refuge in the Triple Gem. So refuge is a kind of a mindfulness of trying to be safe and useful, beneficial, not necessarily trying to be right. Often try to be right goes against those who we think they're wrong, which seems to be a huge problem. So that's why the Buddha taught the middle way. Those who have time to search the middle way rather than going to the other two extremes are much safer for themselves and the others and the future of both and everyone concerned. So we're going to do that prayer as a renewal of our own affirmation and the commitment to practice kindness and compassion. And when we do these two in everyday life, we are much joyful, and therefore we have much more fitness to remain equanimous with those things which we could not deal at the time. So we do not try to fix them outright, because they will, most things take time. And if we can equanimously step aside and let that be, it helps us to calm down, and things change as a result of we learning to calm down. We don't add our gas. So that's very good. So we're going to do this 4 immeasurable prayers 3 times as well, and so followed by the 1 verse. So thank you to Paul and York, who's helped to set up today. They do that all the time, but today, because I'm happening to be interstate, and then we're trying to do Zoom and Facebook and YouTube all together simultaneously, so we had to do a bit of coordinating. So thank you very much, everyone. Most of your familiar faces, but I'm sure you have all our contents are a little bit grown up. Contents a little bit grown up and wiser. So thank you very much. Join your hands at heart, and I think we will screen share you the prayers. Oyenda Buddha Dhamma Sangha Atere Pyute Light Avachu Ajeve Nala Ajare Padavatu and Abu Tadarama Vaisakh Atere Yetela Vaisakh Adeve Ajare Padavatu and Abu Tadama Vaisakh Atere Yetela Vaisakh Adeve Ajare Padavatu and the cause of happiness and and the cause of suffering. Medene the and suffering. Medene kun preference and to those near and far may all be happiness and the cause of happiness and prasad and the cause of suffering. Medene from the head and no suffering head free from attachment and goodness and happiness and the cause of happiness. May there be from and the cause suffering. May they never from the happiness and no suffering. May they free from attachment and never to those near and far. God, and possession, agra lo kom. Thank you. Now, welcome everyone. Well, Zooming and well, Facebooking, well, YouTubing, whichever platform are you using. I'm able to spend a bit of time this morning to help you to understand who this very great special person, Buddha, was as a man before he became enlightened one, and then became the very great light of the world, or light of Asia, at least from some people's point of view. Certainly, it was the light of Asia as until the rest of the world opened up in understanding the teachings of the Buddha. Anyway, so last session we stopped talking about the Buddha himself after enlightenment, meeting some of his would-be important disciples, such as Shariputra and Moggallanaputra, as well as some others, not to mention the 5 mendicants and so on. In today's talk, we're going to go further into some of the very important people and places and disciples that Buddha himself became part of his very important ministry. Remember, we talked last week about Buddha having taught the 5 mendicants, then he returns to Magadha, and then where he met Shariputra and Moggallanaputra. And also we did mention briefly about the important place called Venuvana, the bamboo grove. But I think I want to go back a little bit further on the story of the Venuvana. The Venuvana is the what you call which means bamboo grove. So Buddha went there because when he was invited, after the king Bimbisara heard that the Buddha, who the prince of the Shakya, has attained not only enlightenment, has now arrived in his sort of county, and he said that because the Buddha was in his area, and so he felt a great interest to meet the Buddha, because king had earlier heard of the Buddha's enlightenment. He made 5 wishes. And that those 5 wishes were that a Buddha might appear in his reign, which actually has. Not only Buddha actually became enlightened in his kingdom, that he might also see him. That's his second wish. The third wish was that he might hear the truth from his own mouth. That's the third one. And he wanted that to happen. Fourth was that he might understand what the Buddha had to teach. And fifth was that he might follow his commandment. So listening and hearing is one thing, but following are quite another. So all of these 5 wishes. So on hearing the happy tidings, he sent a messenger to the Buddha, to the Blessed One, to salute him on his behalf and to offer him and his disciples a royal hospitality at his capital, Rajgriha. Rajgriha was one of the 6 main Buddhist cities, and so became very important. So Blessed One accepted the invitation and went to Rajgriha and took up his abode and his 1,000 disciples in the grove and consecrated Chaitya of the people of Magadha, and there the king sought him. King came to meet him. When the king and all his vast multitude which had come with him, so Kashyapa, Kashyapa was one of the very famous religious teacher of India that time, and nobody thought, no matter how great the Buddha was, but Buddha would never be higher than Kashyapa. But when king came to see the Buddha, even the Kashyapa, the elder, the very learned and wise, also happened to be attending as the part of the audience of the Buddha. And he doesn't know what to make of it, because he didn't expect Kashyapa to be attending there. Was the Kashyapa the Buddha's disciple, or was the Buddha the Kashyapa's disciple? So he was confused. He thought that, oh, of course the Buddha was great, but it couldn't be that greater than Kashyapa, because Kashyapa has already only recently become converted by the Buddha. And Buddha, of course, could read his mind of the king Bimbisara, and he actually, instead of him who's the teacher, almost influenced Kashyapa to perform some kinds of miracles in their presence, and then Kashyapa said, look, by the way, my teacher is the Buddha. I'm not teacher anymore. I'm not worthy of being a teacher when I'm in front of the Buddha, even though I can show these miracles, After that, so the king was completely, he couldn't believe his mind witnessing this. And then Blessed One preached to the king and on the nature that everything is transient, impermanent. Your world, your physical health, your position, your possessions, your control or lack thereof, everything is transient, impermanent, and how much of these things are controlled by one's thoughts, one's emotions, and therefore, since our own thoughts and emotions themselves very, very unreliable, everything around us is totally dependent on how we manage our thoughts and emotions. Since very few people lack the power to mind their thoughts and emotions and perceptions, how could anything or their possessions or their relationship or their whatever could remain the same? And so the king and the multitude of Brahmins and everybody who heard completely lost their heart or found faith in the Blessed One's teaching. Then the king invited the Blessed One to the city, and where he came, and finally we come to talk about the story of what we call the Venuvana. Venuvana means bamboo grove. The story of the bamboo grove was this. The origin of the name of the Venuvana is that before Bimbisara has already ascended to the throne, he took great fancy to a park belonging to a rich family of Rajgriha. And when he discovered this beautiful park, he asked the owner for it, but the owner would not give it to him, because even he was the prince, he wouldn't give his park to the king. So the prince didn't like it, He made up his mind that one day when I'm the king, I will take it from him. And indeed he did. So when he became enthroned as the king, and then King Bimbisara, confiscated the park from the lawful owner. And you know what happened? The lawful owner, who got really upset by it, died and became born as a venomous snake in the park. So venomous snake in the park had every intention to be born in there with the venom in it. So when king was enjoying, this is before he met the Buddha. Yeah? Before he met the Buddha, king was enjoying the park, and there were a lot of beautiful Kalantaka birds always enjoying the place, and king always come there for picnic. It was really like royal park. And so when king and his many queens and always come there occasionally, so forth, one day the venomous snake had his own plan to go and kill the king. And so and then when the venomous snake came, while the king was sleeping, surrounded by his concubines and all the royal assistants, the snake crawled towards the king and the Kalanka birds are protected birds by the king, and they make so much noise, and all the queen and concubine got woken up, and then one of the queens went and killed the snake, killed the snake, and king was saved. King was saved from being killed by the venomous snake, and snake. So the lawful owner of the park died twice. One as the lawful owner, other as the snake. I don't know what happened in the third life. That would be on the scope of this talk. Anyway, to show the gratitude to the birds, because the birds saved the king's life. If had the bird not made the noise, queens will all sleep. So maybe a couple of them will be killed, including the king. King therefore placed the bamboo grove, made the grove to be as conducive as possible, so that more Kalantaka birds can come and enjoy. And therefore the park has been dedicated for that. So therefore, when later on, King Bimbisara met the Buddha, he offered the Buddha, Buddha's disciples and Buddha, that is his place to give teachings and so on. So that's why the Venuvana became very famous place. And then there was a ceremony where when the king would bring a jug of water, pour on the hand of the Buddha, that means he washed the negative karma that he created to acquire the land, firstly unlawfully, secondly, all those sorts of things. So anyway, they poured water on the hand of the king, and then king offered the bamboo grove to the Buddha. So that's the story of Venuvana, and then it always became a place, park dedicated for peace and teachings, because the king had realized he's done so many non-virtuous things. Non-virtuous things, he does more serious than that. Later on, he gets karma is so strange. King Bimbisara himself got imprisoned by his own son, called Ajatasattu. Ajatasattu, his son. Ajatasattu imprisons his father, King Bimbisara, who did all those things, met the Buddha and all of that. So you'll probably come to our next episodes about that. Anyway, at that time, when Buddha was now already have given the bamboo grove, is giving the first rainy season retreat was held in bamboo grove. And there Buddha had Shariputra and Moggallanaputra and so on. While he was teaching there, then one day the one great merchant from this merchant is from Shravasti. This merchant's name is Sudatta. I think Sudatta, Sudatta, and better known later on as Anathapindika. Anathapindika is the most famous Buddhist benefactor. But before he became a Buddhist benefactor, he was a very successful businessman. He was traveling between Shravasti, the kingdom of Kosala, to Magadha, and there he heard the prince of the Shakya has become the Buddha. And so everybody the nature of the activities of the town has changed since the arrival of the Prince Siddhartha Buddha in town. So therefore, Anathapindika invited the Buddha and all of his followers for a feast, for a dana. We can call it dana, for a meal. And his actual name is Sudatta, but after he gave so much food and shelter and everything for the sake of the poor and the mendicant, he was given the name Anathapindika. Anathapindika means the donor of those who have nothing, who looked after everyone who's unprotected. So night before the feast, Sudatta heard that the master of the house was making so much preparation, and he heard so much preparation. He says, "What's the big preparation?" He says, "This is Buddha and his disciples arriving." he never saw such big ostentatious preparation by his hosts for the arrival of the Buddha. He has seen many big events, but never like that. Anyway, so when he saw the way how the Buddha arrived and how the devotees received him and so on, completely sort of that sight alone just completely moved him so much, and he just became attended a session, and everything what he heard, he couldn't believe his ears, and then he went straight to the Buddha and questioned him. Buddha straight away showed great interest, personal interest to him. What is your name? Where you come from? What do you do? Is there Dharma in your land? And so on. Of course, obvious that he didn't have Dharma. It was far in Kosala, was at least 600-700 miles away in southwest from Magadha. And he said, no, we don't have any of these. That he said, look, we will create a Sangha in our country. Would you please come? I will with the benefactor. Could you please come? And then Sudatta, who later on became another Pindika, said, please could you send some bhikkhus and make preparation, and then we will eventually invite yourself. So therefore, then Sudatta said, look, I will make all the preparations and will receive someone. And after a little while, he came back and he said now his kingdom was ready to receive the Buddha and his disciple. But Buddha said, I can't come just yet, but I'll send someone. So he sends Shariputra. And when Shariputra went there, and he was already an Arhat. He was already Arhat. But when Shariputra arrived, people thought he was the Buddha. He had such an elegance of great grace and amazing holy presence, and everything he taught made so much understanding, and everybody. And they said, look, we got to have a special place to have this great monk. And then the benefactor Ananta Pindaka went and bought this very special grove called Jetavana. Jetavana is in Sravasti. So this is another second very important Buddhist place in Buddhist history. First is Venuvana. Of course, first is Deer Park in Varanasi, then Venuvana in Rajgriha, and then the Jetavana. Jetavana is the grove of the Prince Jeta in the Kosala kingdom. And then Ananta Pindaka bought the whole grove by paying gold. He had to lay basically golden coins to cover the whole grove to purchase it. The prince wouldn't sell for lowly prices. You have enough gold to cover the whole thing, and then you can buy. And then and of course Ananta Pindaka brought all his gold. And this is just because Shariputra arrived. Shariputra's presence was so important that Ananta Pindaka had no hesitation but to buy the whole grove of Prince Jeta. And that time, Prince Jeta's father, Prasenajit, was not a Buddhist. He was following some other contemporary Indian religious teachers, and they were charging like huge price, huge price. And so anyway, so they sold this, and then when he covered the whole park with the gold, but there still was one big portion of the park not covered. There was not enough gold. But looks like all the gold that he has given has enough procure enough land that was big enough, but there still was little not enough. So they cordoned off the part that was not enough for gold to put aside. Later on, then they purchased that, and then Shariputra started giving teachings. Shariputra attracted so many followers. And he converted so many chief of various religious traditions and so on. And some of them became so jealous of Shariputra, and they tried to execute Shariputra. Many tried to kill him, Shariputra. But Shariputra was an Arhat. He had the power to know the people's intention. They never succeed to kill him. And anyway, so then Shariputra then built the beautiful Buddhist temple in Prince Jeta's grove. When you go nowadays, that's why all the ruins stands for. Very much like the modeled on the Tushita heaven. So in the end, Shariputra was scathed, unharmed, no matter how many harm people tried to do, because they were so jealous and he was so famous. In the end, Shariputra was successful to convert many of the people in his region. And they thought he was the Buddha. They said, and then they were making a lot of preparation. And Buddha Torah, the people said, what are you making preparation? They said, now they're making preparation for the arrival of Buddha. They said, what? We thought he was the Buddha. Because Shariputra had so much command, so much power and blessings, so on. They thought he was the Buddha, and they didn't realize he was just one who came to make preparation for the Buddha's arrival. So the locals just couldn't understand. And what happened is then the local king, having heard that they're going to bring the Buddha into the country, he thought. He thought the Buddha, Prince of the Shakya, died of starvation. That's what they were spreading rumors. Remember, people always spread rumors when the opposite story of when someone is doing very well, someone don't like it out of jealousy or whatever. They tell all kinds of rumors. And then the king presented, I thought he was dead. I thought he died of starvation. He failed at enlightenment. He completely failed his 5 mendicant friend, and he just failed. I said, I don't believe my ears. I thought he was still completely dead. Now, of course, that's wrong. Everything we know mostly are wrong. So all the negative things you hear about are mostly wrong. They're painted by jealous plots and angry plots and so on. So then, and he said, but he said, I have my teacher like Purna Kashyapa and Goshala and Sanjaya or Vairati and Ajita or Kanchakapama and King Prasenajit. When he heard the Buddha was coming to his kingdom, he says, we don't need him. We have the real teachers here. And then, anyways, by now Anathapindaka has already made arrangement to bring over, and the Buddha arrived. And again, the sheer manner in which Buddha was received in Shravasti at the sponsorship of the Anathapindaka just made the king Prasenajit so jealous. So jealous. He says, who the hell is, he can't be greater than all the teachers that I have met. But when the Buddha arrived and only said few opening remarks, the king just couldn't believe his ears. He could hear so much teachings, and Buddha's teaching just completely won his heart. And so in any way, soon the king Prasenajit of Kosala was so impressed, he quickly sent a messenger to his friend of King Shuddhodana of Shakya, hey, by the way, your son hasn't died. Your son hasn't died of starvation. It's a wrong story. He's enlightened. He come here. Look at that. My country's completely changed. This is Anathapindaka bought my whole prince's grove, and they brought thousands of monks. Even his disciples are like Buddha himself. So you should go and come and greet your son, and at least invite you home. He's no longer dead. He's alive. And so King Prasenajit sent this message to Shakyamuni's father, the Shuddhodana. And of course, by this time, Shuddhodana has already heard that his son hasn't died, and and become enlightened. And he's just wondering whether when he can make contact. And then, interesting story about around that time, the Buddha spent at least 4 or 5 years there before he went to his hometown. But after King Prasenajit has already been converted, and then he became a sponsor, another benefactor of the Buddha Shakyamuni Buddha, and he therefore convinced all his friends and asked Shuddhodana to invite his son now back. He says, "Your son has found the drink of nectar. When he speaks a little bit of his nectar, we also become nectarized." We also become completely changed. So therefore, his teaching has quenched the thirst of all mankind. You must get a drink of this. It's your son. Then King Shuddhodana, now we're coming to King Shuddhodana is the Buddha's father, sent messengers to the Blessed One, asking his son now to come back. By this time, Buddha has already again gone back to Rajgriha already. And so it doesn't take a long time for the Buddha to go to places or whatever. So he was there, and he receives all these messengers coming from his father, bringing lots of gifts and letters and so on, asking him to come back. But every time the messengers come to see the Buddha, they sit there, listen to 1 or 2 sermons, they all became monks, and they never return home. So Buddha's father, he sent all these people, everybody became monk, nobody returned. So he sent another one, did the same, another one, did the same, another one, did the same. And so the king Shuddhodana was really feel rejected. He felt rejected. He wasn't able to sort of bring back his son, even though he sent. Finally, he asked one messenger. He says, "Please, if you go and want to become monk, that's okay. But could you please come back and tell what the hell is it telling, whether he's coming or not?" And then this last messenger, Kokaludai, he took the letter. He said, I promise I'll come back with the message. Even I return back and become monk myself, I will not stay there and not come back. I'll at least bring back the message when he will come. So Uday promised that he would come back, even if he entered order in the meantime. Hardly had he arrived in Rajgriha, but the Buddha had already converted him just like that. And Shariputra was ordaining everybody, shave everybody's hair, gave the name, changed the robe, and so on. But Buddha said, "You can go home and tell my dad that I will come," and instructed him to. But he said, "When you go to Kapilavastu, that's his song, but don't enter the city. Tell my dad I can't come enter the city. I'm a mendicant. I'm not allowed to enter lay people's house. Please build a small hut that is suitable to host monks outside the city. Then only, so you should come out and receive me there, but I cannot come." So Buddha instructed him to stop at the gate of the town, not to dwell in a house in the lay people's home, but informed the king that when he himself will visit together with his followers, his father should build a separate vihara. So vihara is like a monastery. And then, of course, Kaludai delivered the message as it has been given to him, and the King Shuddhodana, of course, very happily built a special vihara called Banyan Grove or Nigoda Dharma. That's outside Kapilavastu, and modeled on the Prince Jeta's grove. So that's the story of how the Nigoda Dharma was built outside Kapilavastu. When all was ready, then Buddha traveled to Kapilavastu with his disciples. First, he stopped at the banks of river Rohita near the city. Then his followers performed all kinds of teachings and magicals, all the arhats, whatever the arhats doing, were all miracles, villagers, just cow herders, just saw the arhats and they couldn't believe their eyes. So everybody see these amazing miracles, all arhats flying, or burning half the body in fire, half the body dripping a lot of water in the sky. Everybody was converted just by seeing the sheer behavior of the sanghas, And anyway, so the king, when the Buddha came to Nigrodha, the special grove, king bowed to the Buddha's feet, much to the astonishment of the people, because previously he was very critical of his son being deserting him and letting him down and so on. Now they can see him completely changed by the presence of the Buddha. And he conversed, the king Shuddhadana talked to his son, now see that the Gautam Buddha, but the father was admiring what he has achieved, but he still wasn't quite converted to become his disciple yet. All of his other people, like his three other brothers, after the first meeting at the Banyan Grove, Shukladana, that's one of the Buddha's uncle, together with 70,000, and all became the Buddha's disciple. But Shuddhodana, his father, didn't. Then after a short interval, Dronodana with 66,000. After another one, Amritodana with 75,000. All of them become converted to become follower of Buddha. But Shuddhodana, Buddha's father, still didn't become the disciple, They go, familiarity breeds contempt, they call it. He's my son, Why should I become his disciple or something like that? So he has this filial projection, projecting something in his son for failing him. He couldn't see a Buddha in him. Anyway, Buddha was still waiting for his opportunity to convert his father, but he'd not been able to make any impression on him just yet, Although, and then Buddha even sent his disciple Moggallanaputra, who can show lots of miracles to him, but still his father was not really happy, And then later on, anyway, so Buddha was teaching various. When Buddha gave another teaching, all the Lokapalas, meaning the gods of the world, Chakra, Brahman, and Indra, 4 guardians from the desire realm and form realm, all of them had descended from the heaven and become the part of the audience of the Buddha's teaching. And then his father dropped his jaw. He said, what on earth has my son become? He's able to attract even the gods to become his followers. Then Shuddhodana, after seeing this, then changed his mind. Now it's time for him, because everybody else has become follower of his son. Now he too. And then he says, I will now renounce the throne. And he wanted to give it to somebody, because everybody has now become ordinary. Hardly there were any suitable candidate left. And, Buddha's second stepbrother was Nanda, but Nanda was too young to become a king yet, and so on, and so anyway, someone called Shakyaraja Badrika was given the throne by King Shuddhodana, so that he himself can now become Buddha's disciple and became a monk. And then King Shuddhodana also washed his hands with another water. He said, now I'll give you my Banyan Grove to you, Banyan Grove to you. And so he handed over the Banyan Grove as Bimbisara gave the bamboo grove. King Shuddhodana gave his Banyan Grove to the Buddha, washing his hands, as the king Prasenajit did the same by washing his hands, giving the Jetavana Grove. So this is how slowly you can call it, land title was shifted, land title was transferred in the name of the Sangha. And then at the end, the Shakyamuni Buddha's father Shuddhodana gave a very special entertainment to celebrate his son's accomplishment, and presented the grove, and then he himself took robe, and so many of the Shakyas all took robes and became followers of Buddha. Now, at this time, there were many Shakya families, yeah. And what we're coming to here is interesting thing about this is that now Buddha's, we can call it ex-wife, or all his concubines and everybody, they were all wishing to be ordained, but Buddha gave them blessings, gave the teaching, but he still wasn't quite keen to have them admitted into the order just yet, because there were a lot of politics going on, because all of the Buddha's relatives becoming now ordained, remember, ordained, and so according to the the rules of the Vinaya, all being formed and have been updated every now and then, and so we have also Buddha's another cousin, Devadatta, Aniruddha, and these things, they were all wanted to be, they were all eyeing for the throne, but apparently the throne was given to Bhadrika, and so when this was all happening, Aniruddha is Devadatta's brother. He wants his brother Devadatta to take the he says, I'm going to join the Sangha. If you want to join the Sangha, you should come with me. Devadatta said, no, I want the throne. I don't want to become a mendicant. I want to be a king. So anyway, there was a lot of these kind of things were happening. In the meantime, all these people were becoming monks, and there was a barber called Upali. Upali the barber had a roaring business because everybody was ordained. He shaved all these hairy Indians. Hairy Indians. If you're in the shaving business, if all the hairy Indians become shaven, you've got a big business. And Upali had a very good, successful business shaving all these hairy Indians. And then later on, Upali the barber have to shave everybody's head and beard, and he had finished doing so. They all took off their jewelries, ornaments, gave them to him, and they don't want to pay him just a little barber fee. They will give the jewelries, and he ended up all these jewelries, that he never could receive. The barber job in India is considered to be one of the low-caste jobs, but he's never been so wealthy in his life. In the first couple of months when he met the Buddha, he became so wealthy that he hasn't earned like the last 20 years. And Upali Baba got sort of, in many ways, have faith or happiness because he becomes so, and everybody is able to renounce so much just to shave them and become a disciple. And he was given all these jewelries. And he was, what am I missing? Am I missing something? I'm shaving everybody, taking all their jewelries, and everybody just goes off, becoming the disciples of Buddha. If these young noblemen have given up wealth, pleasures of youth, wives, treasures, become mendicant, it cannot then be seeming in me to care for Bibles, but they would bring me such grief. He said, what point of me holding this? Am I missing something? If I had not, if I had not had an evil birth, he thought his being a barber was an evil birth, he thought he will not be admitted because he's too much a low caste. I would have entered order of the well-spoken Dharma and have devoted myself to crossing the stream and freeing myself of my bonds. But in this religious tradition, I will not be admitted because he thought Buddha was another Hindu. One of the other Hindu teachers who would not admit anybody like him. Later on, Shariputra spotted the successful barber. He says, what you're doing, all this shaving all people and missing out yourself. And then the barber said, look, I'm a barber, I wouldn't be allowed. And Shariputra said, you're wrong. One of the things about the Blessed One's teaching is no discrimination between races and castes. So if you wanted to give up your successful profession, successful profession, I'll guarantee you will be admitted and will be successful. Will be successful. And then Shariputra knew Upali would not only become a monk, but he will become a very famous monk, will be an extraordinary successor to the Buddha of the Vinaya itself. Then Shariputra led him to where the Blessed One was and told him that Upali wanted to enter the order. Buddha said, come here, bhikkhu. He straight away called him a bhikkhu. He thought nobody will made him a bhikkhu, let alone. As soon as Buddha said, come here, bhikkhu, all over his hair dropped. All his hair, all his beard, all dropped automatically. Doesn't need any other barber to come. Quite an interesting thing. To symbolize that he has shaven enough. He doesn't have to shave himself. And he said, you will have a purity of life. And then Upali's hair fell off. And he stood arrayed in bhikkhu's apparel. Naturally, he got down by bhikkhu's arms ball in his hand, and with the look of a bhikkhu in 8 years standing. So this miraculous. And then while this low caste person has just become monk, couple of hours later, a group of still few Shakya princes have now wanted to come and to be ordained. By that time, people like Aniruddha and Mahanama and various others also have now come to seek ordination. And then the ordination is usually conducted by not only senior monks, anybody who's been ordained before you, even a couple of minutes, you have to bow down to them. And then as the Shakya prince arrived, and Upali the barber, the low caste person has just become a monk only a couple of hours ago, sitting there with very elegant, looking very holy and so on, was never going to use a razor blade anymore. And he was sitting there, and all the Shakya prince arrived. Buddha would consent to give them ordination, but give order to pay homage to Upali. And the prince said, no way, we don't bow down to the barber. What did he? Buddha said, no, in my tradition, it's no caste system. Whoever is ordained even few minutes earlier than you must bow down to him, not because of caste, because of your seniority in the knowledge and the precepts. And then, everybody couldn't believe that. And because Buddha said so, all the Shakya prince also bow down to Upali. Upali had been now received. Upali has been only received ordination only minutes ago, but he showed so much purity and decency of a sangha, and then everybody, as according to Buddha's order, bow down to him, and they're all to cast off all of their pride of being born in high families. Buddha, one of the things that he conquered was their pride of being born in high or rich or wealthy, or so Buddha made them all to pay homage to the Upali the barber. And then when this was happening, Devadatta was among the crowd, but he says, no, I will never bow down a barber. He thought of taking ordination, but he said, no, and if that's the condition, I will not be. I will not be. So that's how Devadatta disobeyed. He disobeyed. So Devadatta rebelled, had a quarrel with Buddha a few times, but this was the first most spiritual quarrel. He said, no, I will never do that. I'm too important. You see. I will never bow down to a barber, particularly at his order, When this was all happening, now Yashodhara, Buddha's wife, and she like an ex-wife. She wish he could come back to her again. So her wish was that she saw that she could see from her palace door windows far. He could see there, and he wanted to win him back. She gave 500 pieces to a charm maker of Rajgriha, who gave her to filter, which could bring the Buddha back to her. She was trying to bring the Buddha back to her because she still haven't given up, poor lady. So Yashodhara gave these to gave later on to Rahula, her son. When the Buddha came, he says, "Tell him, I'm your son. How, Dad? What are you doing here? Come home. My mother wants you." And when Buddha came to a couple of us, this is second or third time, not the first time. Buddha came, and then Yashodhara sent her son. His son was now about 7-8 years, and comes and she said, "Go and recognize your father and bring him up." When Buddha was arrived, Buddha multiplied himself into 500. Buddha multiplied into 500, and Rahula was still able to recognize his father among other 500. And gave him the charm that his mother sent. Buddha gave the food back to Rahula, and then and Rahula ate it. After which he could not be prevented from following from the father. And then after meeting the Rahula said, "I want to be yours. I want to be the whatever successor or something." Buddha said, "Yes, you are my successor. Eat this." So he ate the food, and he became the successor. So because his son thought he was going to be successor of the king or whatever, but Buddha thought the real successor was become monk. Real successor was become a monk. So having Yashodhara, Buddha's wife, having failed in this attempt, arrayed herself and all her concubine friends, 60,000 other women of the palace, all of their fineries. They placed themselves where they would be seen by the Buddha when he came to the palace, and then they thought they are still as beautiful as they were, and they're all waiting for him. They want to come back. Of course, Buddha performed so many kinds of miracles in their presence, and which he filled them with awe and established them all in faith. All of the ladies, just by Buddha coming where he did, completely won their heart to the Buddha spiritually, and then followed. All of them, but Yashodhara, she was still the only lady who wasn't quite able to become his disciple, blinded by her love for her lost husband, would not quite see the truth of the Dharma, but continued to hope that she would be able to bring him back in her arms one day. Although all of her other friends have given up. A little while later on, however, she too was converted, and she entered the order. And because an arhat, and Buddha said of her, Yashodhara, mother of Rahula, is the most modest of his female disciples. Because she's given up in modesty now. If you give up of immodesty or desire, then you become modest, by this time, now Buddha is going to meet his future attendant, Ananda. Ananda is same age as Rahula. That's Amirtodana's son, boy of same age as Rahula. Because soothsayers have already predicted that Ananda will play a very significant role in the life of the Buddha. So Buddha took him as his disciple, took him with him, and then Ananda was easily converted to become his disciple with him. So what we can see from the story we have covered today is how Buddha himself travels from Varanasi to Rajgriha to Sravasti to Kapilavastu, and then goes back to Rajgriha again, then returns back to Kapilavastu again, then finally he converts everyone. By this time, both his father and his wife too has already become his disciples, and not to mention his own stepmother, Prajapati Gautami. But Prajapati Gautami didn't just want to become his follower, but she wanted to become his nun. He wanted to become a bhikkhuni. So in this time, when they have requested Buddha to ordain him quite a few times, Buddha said there was a little bit of, he dissuaded them becoming nuns. He said, you're fine by being a follower, but you don't have to become nuns totally. So then there was one Shakya monk called Shakya Mahanama had heard the truth, and he also delighted with it, that his wife was struck with enthusiasm, asked him the reasons. He told her about the Buddha and his doctrine and said that he was their savior. But then she said, he is the savior of men, but not of women. She complained because he wouldn't accept women as ordination. He says, say not so. Her husband said, you don't say that. You shouldn't say that about the Buddha. He's savior of all living beings. You can't just say he's a savior of man and not women. His mercy extends to all creation. Go seek him and you will hear the truth from his mouth. Mahanama was unable, however, to get King Shuddhodana's permission for the women to go to Banyan Grove because Buddha wouldn't allow. But he interested Prajapati Gautami, that's Buddha's stepmother, the king's wife, in their undertaking that she obtained necessary authorization because she was queen, like the queen mother. And she alone got the permission to go and see the Buddha in Banyan Grove now. So Mahanama has also persuaded the other 500 women, Shakya women, they should also follow her. They shouldn't give up their hope. They shouldn't give up. So Mahanama's wife was young and beautiful. She wore so much jewelry on that occasion. She was approaching the Buddha with other women. Buddha's attendants saw her and reproved her for wearing such gorgeous apparel. This is not appropriate for you to wear such elegant jewelry to see the Buddha. She gave her jewelry to the maid servant who had accompanied her, who was very desirous hearing the Dharma too, but not desiring of having the jewelries. So jewelry was everybody throwing jewelries. They find another jewel, and told her to take the jewels home. She said, if you don't want to take it home, I don't want. But the girl was so distressed of being deprived of hearing the Buddha preach, and she died on her way to the city. The maid was told, you should take this home. And she said, I want to hear the Buddha too. But she was forced to go home, and she died, poor lady. She too wanted to hear the truth, Who wants the jewelry when you can hear the truth? She was, however, later on reborn as a Princess Ratnavali, as a daughter of King of Sri Lanka, and who later would bring Dharma to Sri Lanka. So because her intention of prayer was so much intent to bring Dharma, even though she died, she was reborn as a, so that shows the power of intention, power of prayer. Even somebody who controls your life, but your intention will be rewarded later. So in the end, what I'm going to stop here is that finally Buddha's stepmother and others was able to persuade the Buddha through Ananda. Now this time Ananda has already become Buddha's attendant. He was really, he really loved Buddha's stepmother so much. The lady has suffered so much. He said, look, I will go and talk to your behalf. He was always crying and sobbing with them. Then he says, I'll go, you guys wait out here. Ananda did all that work. So Ananda, I won't go into some of the details before that. And then, however, Ananda, then the Buddha said, if Prajapati Gautama accept 8 conditions, and the women will accept the 8 conditions, I will ordain them. Otherwise, tell them I will not. And then Ananda said, what are the 8 conditions? And the Buddha told 8 conditions. The 8 conditions were, she may enter the order first to thoroughly understand the nature of bhikshuni. So nature of bhikshuni is not nature of bhikkhus, gender-wise, biology-wise, and all the dynamics of what and so on. So first is they must understand nature of them being bhikshuni. What is that? Bhikshuni being near bhikkhus shall be taught every half month. So it means the bhikshunis have to be taught every 2 weeks. They should be taught by bhikkhus, never by bhikkhunis. So bhikshuni has to always receive teaching every week, every 2 weeks from bhikkhus. So that's the second condition. It doesn't seem too bad a thing that if the bhikkhunis need education. Third, a bhikkhuni shall not pass the season of was in a place where there are no bhikkhus. So bhikkhuni cannot go far away to be themselves, promote themselves as being important teachers without being under the supervisor of a bhikkhus nearby. So that's the third condition. Fourth condition was a bhikkhuni during shall be sufficiently separated from the bhikkhu so as not to see and hear them or fear of the proximity. So that's the fourth condition. Fifth condition, a bhikkhuni by words or by reviving recollection shall not damage the morals of the bhikkhus. Yeah, so bhikkhuni is a danger for the bhikkhus, I think vice versa, but anyway, so bhikkhuni is dangerous for the bhikkhus. And the sixth is bhikkhuni shall not be wrathful, abusive, or do anything sinful. So bhikkhuni shouldn't be very wrathful and very angry, and then it doesn't look very good. So that's the sixth one. Seventh one is bhikkhuni. A bhikkhuni shall confess her sins to the bhikkhus. So that she just have to always give to the respect to the bhikkhus. Seventh, this is every fortnight, yeah. But that's seventh. Eighth is bhikkhuni, though she has been ordained since 100 years, shall always speak kindly to her bhikkhus, even if he is recently ordained. She shall honor him, rise before him, revere him, and bow down to him. So these are the 8 conditions that the bhikkhuni must observe if they're going to. And then Prajapati Gautami accept all these rules, and so she and other women were received into the order, and among them Yashodhara, also Buddha's wife, was among them. So this is towards the second half of Buddha's ministry. Yeah? So Buddha basically ordained women at the persuasion of Ananda under those 8 conditions. So that's interesting. So we can cover quite a few of the very important people in Buddha's life were all converted. There seems to be just the being in the presence of the Buddha and his disciples was enough to most people just completely change their mind, and people to join the ministry in that level. So we will stop there, everyone. Thank you for today, and we will continue these aspects of life of Buddha next week and thereafter. Thank you very much for joining. If you have any questions, I may take 1 or 2. Those of you who are here as Zoom audience, please feel free and unmute yourself. Looks like we're going to do the dedication merits. If there are no questions, if there are hands going up or anything, I will. There's no question because these are all facts, history, interesting story. So let's do the dedication merit. Thank you very much, everyone. So yeah, we'll share the screen, share the prayers. Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye. Take care.